Welcome to the deep dive. We sift through your sources, pull out the key insights, and, well, give you that shortcut to being genuinely informed.
And today, we're diving into something pretty specific, actually. It's the world of high-performance hunting air rifles.
Yeah, .22 caliber specifically. And our main source here is really interesting. It's a personal, pretty candid review and ranking from someone called Hunter Tom, dating back to April 2017.
Right, the great snapshot. And our mission, really, is to unpack the criteria he used.
Yeah.
What made him rank these rifles the way he did?
Exactly. We want to get beyond just the specs on the box, understand the niche market, the personal preferences versus practical needs.
And maybe uncover some surprising insights about how people choose these kinds of specialized tools.
And what makes it even more layered is he gives us two lists, one for the U.S.
And one for Canada, which, as you'll see, have quite different contexts.
Okay, so let's get into it, starting with the U.S. market and Hunter Tom's approach there.
The first thing to really grasp is that this is his personal buying order.
Right, super important. This isn't some objective Consumer Reports style ranking. It's what he would buy, in what order, for his specific needs: beginner hunting, pest control.
And that subjectivity is actually what makes it so fascinating, isn't it? It's a real window into how an enthusiast thinks in a specialized field.
Totally. It shows that best isn't always about the highest number or the fanciest tech. It's about the right fit for the person.
So what was he looking for? He laid out 11 distinct criteria for these .22s. Remember, he's thinking squirrels, pests, maybe raccoons.
First up, power source. He was pretty firm on this one.
Yeah, he insisted on nitro piston or gas piston only, no traditional springers.
Why was that?
He felt they were better for extensive hunting periods. Generally, they shoot smoother, less recoil, maybe more consistent power over time compared to a spring that can, wear down and be affected by temperature.
Okay, makes sense for consistency in the field. Then velocity.
Speed, yeah. He wanted over 750 feet per second, FPS, and basically said the more the better for hunting.
Higher speed, flatter trajectory, more impact energy. Got it. But it wasn't just power.
No, definitely not. Optics were key. It had to come with a decent quality scope. Out-of-the-box readiness was important.
Practical. And the stock.
He preferred wood. He mentioned recoil reduction as the reason. Whether that's technically true or just perceived feel, it mattered to him.
Interesting. Then we get into the more personal stuff.
Right, the doodads. He literally said the more doodads, the better.
Yeah.
Little extras, features, whatever caught his eye.
Huh. And link that to aesthetics. If he thought it looked cool, it ranked higher.
Which is just brilliant, isn't it? It
Yeah.
really speaks to that emotional side of buying. How often does cool factor into our decisions, even subconsciously?
More often than we admit, probably. Okay, what else? Cost was big?
Yep, very budget conscious, around $100 to $200, absolute max of $220.
And some technical points. Barrel length.
Longer preferred for longer ranges and accuracy. And weight.
The less weight, the better. Easier to carry while hunting, presumably.
Makes sense. And finally, overall quality and the caliber.
Quality had to be somewhat good for a beginner, not complete junk. And of course, .22 caliber was mandatory for the type of hunting he planned.
So you've got this mix, right? Hard specs like FPS and price, but then these very subjective things like coolness and doodads and even stock material preference.
It really makes you think about how we value things. How do these criteria all mash together shape the perceived value for someone like Hunter Tom?
Exactly. A rifle could hit 1,000 FPS, but if it's too heavy or doesn't look cool enough, it drops down his personal list. It's about the whole package fitting his specific formula.
So with that unique formula in mind, let's look at his U.S. top 10 from back then, April 2017. What came out on top for him?
Number one was the Gamma Maxim Swarm gas piston, a .22 right around $200.
What were the specs on that one?
Pretty good. About 975 FPS, a decent 19.9-inch barrel, and importantly, quite light at 5.64 pounds.
But what really pushed it to number one?
The plain cool factor, as he put it. It had a 10-shot repeater magazine, so quick follow-up shots without fumbling pellets. Big practical plus for hunting.
Ah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Form and function there. What was number two?
Number two was the Crosman Phantom Nitro Piston, also .22. The big draw here, price, only $115.
Wow, that's cheap.
Yeah, he called it very cheap for good specs. It offered 950 FPS and weighed 6.4 pounds, 15-inch barrel. Just solid value for a beginner on a budget.
Hits that sweet spot of affordable performance. Okay, number three.
Now, number three was a bit of a beast. The Umarex Octane Combo Kit, $200.
What stood out there?
Velocity, a whopping 12,250 feet per second, he said. plus a long 19.5-inch barrel. He even mentioned it could easily shoot across a valley at like 50 yards for raccoons.
Whoa. Any downsides?
A bit heavy, yeah.
Yeah.
9.5 pounds. So, trade-off there, power versus portability.
And number 4.
The Ruger Yukon Scope Combo. This one hit his max price of $220.
How did it compare to the Umarex?
Slightly less velocity, around 1050 FPS, and a shorter barrel. But crucially for him, it had a hardwood stock. Remember his preference.
Ah, right. That wood stock preference bumping it up, even with slightly lower specs than the Octane, perhaps. Interesting.
But here's where Hunter Tom himself noticed something interesting, especially further down the list.
What was that?
The similarities, particularly between many of the Crossman and Benjamin models.
Oh.
Yeah, he kind of speculated, might be the same base gun, but with a different stock and logo. He felt, really, they all seem similar.
That's a really key point for consumers, isn't it? How much difference is there really sometimes between brands or models at similar price points?
Exactly. Are you paying for a genuine difference or just branding and minor cosmetic tweaks? His advice was basically figure out what you need and pick the one that fits. Don't get too hung up on tiny differences between essentially similar guns.
Can you give an example from his list?
Sure. His number 2 pick, the Crossman Phantom at $150 versus the Benjamin Trail Nitro Piston way down at number 7, which was only $4 more expensive at $119.
So almost identical price, similar specs too.
Very similar specs. He implied the choice there really just boiled down to brand preference or maybe a tiny design difference.
What about others?
Look at the Crossman Shockwave at #9 and the Benjamin Prowler at #10. Again, very similar. 950 FPS, 15-inch barrels, same 4x32 center point scope, often bundled. The main difference he noted was weight, just 0.4 pounds between them.
It really shows how sometimes the choice is more about variations on a theme than truly distinct options.
Absolutely, especially in that budget-friendly segment.
Okay, so that's the U.S. picture based on his very personal criteria. Now let's shift gears north to Canada.
And this is where things get really different. Why? Regulations.
Right. In Canada, there's a critical threshold, 495 FPS. Anything above that generally requires a firearms permit, a PL.
Which drastically, and I mean drastically, limits the available selection of powerful hunting air rifles that you can just buy off the shelf like in the U.S.
Hunter Tom even said he kind of went unscripted for the Canadian list because finding options that met his other criteria, nitro piston, .22 cal price, within that regulatory landscape was tough.
It's a perfect example of how external factors, like government rules, completely reshape consumer choice. You're forced to prioritize differently, make compromises.
You might have to accept things you wouldn't consider in a market with more options.
Precisely. Personal preference takes a backseat to simply what's available and legal without extra hoops.
So, given these major constraints, what did make it onto his Canadian list? Number 1.
Surprisingly, number 1 was the Ruger Air Magnum combo. .22 cal, $220.
Okay, what's surprising?
It's a spring piston. Remember how we insisted on nitro gas piston for the U.S. stuff?
Yeah, he says spring pistons kind of suck for hunting.
Exactly. But here, it's number 1. Why? Because it boasts a huge 1200 FPS velocity and a long 19.5-inch barrel. Those high specs were apparently hard to find in Canada without needing a permit, so he overlooked the power source he didn't prefer.
So sacrificing the preferred power plant for raw velocity because velocity was scarce?
Pretty much.
Ugh.
He did note the downside, though, a hefty 42-pound cocking effort, which, just to clarify, isn't the rifle's weight. That's 7.95 pounds. That's the force needed to cock the spring.
Oof. Okay, that's a definite trade-off. What about number 2 in Canada?
Number 2 was the Benjamin Titan Nitro Piston Brake Barrel. Back to his preferred power source, around $200.
Specs.
Good velocity for the Canadian context, 1,000 FPS, and it had that hardwood stock he liked. He mentioned it was very similar to his own personal rifle.
Okay, so a more balanced option perhaps if available. Number 3.
The Crossman Nitro Venom Dusk, .22 cal. This one was a bit pricier, $230, $255 down.
Higher than his U.S. cap.
Yeah, and he directly justified it by saying the selection in Canada was just very limited. Supply and demand, essentially. You pay more when options are fewer.
Makes sense. Number 4.
Number 4, again, this was the Crossman Phantom .22 cal.
Wait, the same one that was number 2 on the U.S. list?
The very same model, assuming it's the version sold in Canada under the 495 FPS limit, or perhaps he found a higher FPS version available with a permit, or maybe he just meant it's a solid gun if you can get the higher FPS version. His notes weren't entirely clear on that nuance for the Canadian list regarding permits, but its presence highlights its perceived reliability. He mentioned the 950 FPS version could take raccoons.
Interesting how it appears on both lists speaks to its general utility. And finally, number 5 in Canada.
The Crossman Optimus, around $200.
Why that?
Two main reasons. It's a spring piston again, and critically, it doesn't come with a scope, breaking one of his key rules.
Ah, so you'd have to buy one separately, adding cost and hassle.
Right. Even though he noted it had an impressive 18.75-inch barrel, longest barrel seen from Crossman so far, he said the downsides of the power source and lack of scope pushed it to the bottom of his limited Canadian options.
It really paints a picture of that you lose some to gain some reality in a constrained market, doesn't it?
Absolutely. You're constantly weighing compromises. Understanding these constraints gives you a much richer view of consumer behavior. It's not just about what people want, it's about what they can actually get, and how regulations shape what's deemed best when choices are scarce.
So there we have it, a really specific but fascinating journey into .22 hunting air rifles, all through the eyes of one enthusiast, Hunter Tom.
And it just hammers home how incredibly personal these rankings can be, driven by criteria you might not even think of, like coolness.
And how market conditions, like the regulations in Canada, fundamentally change the game, dictating choices and priorities.
So the question to maybe leave you with is this. Think about your own decisions, not just about air rifles, obviously, but anything.
Yeah, how often do your own unspoken criteria, that cool factor, that little doodad, that specific feel, subtly steer you towards one choice over another, even when you think you're being purely rational?
And on the flip side, how much does the sheer availability of options shape what you consider the best? Are you sometimes just picking the best of what's easily accessible without realizing other possibilities might exist if the shelf were stocked differently?
Definitely something to ponder. A deep dive into our own decision-making.